Hey guys, so sorry about the lack of a video. My cat kind of destroyed my camera, so you're gonna have to deal with this silly picture. So I guess try to take this seriously because I seriously didn't have anything else on my computer. So I'm gonna start kind of the same way I did with my last vlogs. I'm just gonna talk about vocabulary, and then I'll put a list down below, and so you guys can know what I'm talking about. I'm probably going to mention some pieces within there so you can know how they refer or how the terms connect to them, and you can look back in your textbooks or your notes and say, okay, that one involves this term and this term and this term. It's going to be a little bit choppy, a little bit long, but like I said, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And so I guess here we go. So the first term I'm going to start with is Mannerism. So you're going to be seeing this term within the Last Judgment, Entombment, Madonna of the Long Neck, Salt Cellars, the Salt Cellar, and Astronomy, basically the Mannerism pieces. Now the Last Judgment isn't necessarily in Mannerism, but it's a really important piece when you refer to Mannerism. So the term Mannerism comes from the word Maniera, which means in the style or in the hand of. And I'll write down that term, Maniera, below with Mannerism as well. So it was called Mannerism because of the excessive beauty that had been developed in Michelangelo's work, which is the Last Judgment. So in other words, he helped to lead the style, but he didn't actually invent it. The Last Judgment is a piece that young artists saw who actually developed the movement of Mannerism. And it's, you see it through, the color schemes, especially in the Entombment, that really weird, awkward color. I wouldn't necessarily call it awkward. I would just call it different. A different color scheme. So that's kind of why the Last Judgment is a little bit relevant within Mannerism. So the concept of Mannerism is that it's supposed to depict this artificial beauty, an ideal and strange but still beautiful. So if you look at Madonna Long Neck, it's very awkward, it's very unnaturalistic, and a little bit, in my case, a little bit weird. But it's supposed to depict this like fashion-like beauty, elegance. And so that's kind of what Mannerism was about. You see that in Salt Cellar, where the figures of Gaia and Poseidon are at this awkward pose. Like, it almost looks contorted and uncomfortable. It doesn't look like you would usually do that. And Astronomy is also a very good example, where she's posed in this contorted pose, and it's an impossible pose, to be quite honest. And Professor Saylor, if you were in class that day, shows you kind of how awkward it was, but it just was supposed to show that beauty there. It was supposed to look elegant. It didn't matter how awkward the pose were, as long as it looked elegant, So that's what Mannerism is about. So we're going to go into lime wood. And so it's a type of wood that derives from Germany, and it was used in a lot of German pieces. So Altarpiece of the Holy Blood is going to be an example of that. So it was supposed to be a tool for nationalism. Germany wanted to take pride in their own heritage. And, just like marble was a medium that was primarily used in Italian works, in Roman works, artists in the North wanted to use lime wood in the same way. It was a sense of pride, a sense of heritage. Lime wood was very, decadent in Germany. So now we'll go to Predella. And I'm gonna specifically look at the Eisenheim altarpiece. So remember, we did mention Predella in the last vlog, and it's a base of an altarpiece, which is often decorated with small scenes that are usually related to the subject or that of the main panels or panels. So in Eisenheim altarpiece, you see, the crucifixion in the central part, but then the Predella, you see, kind of like the deposition, him being taken down from the cross. So it's usually related to that. So just know that you just know what Predella means. Okay. And I'll do one last term before I go to the second part. So again, I'm going to refer to the Eisenheim altarpiece, and this will be linear perspective. So this is just kind of a recap. So remember that linear perspective was invented in Italy, so even though the Northern Renaissance artists desired to have their own heritage being known, the use of linear perspective meant that Northern works, like the Isaac Altarpiece, were influenced from Italian works. So just know that linear perspective is just generally well known now. That's just the point of it. And side note, additionally, Chiaroscuro is being used as well, which is another Italian art influence. Alright, so I'm going to actually do one more term. Sorry about that, you guys. I have 5 minutes. I could probably do a couple more minutes. So I'm just going to briefly introduce Tenebrism, and then I'm going to go more in depth into it. So Tenebrism is, in short, a really intense chiaroscuro. So remember that chiaroscuro means literally light and dark. We saw that a lot within some Renaissance works, like Leonardo with the Mona Lisa. And the artist you're going to know, actually the artist who sort of invented, quote-unquote, Tenebrism, was Caravaggio. And that's usually, when you say Tenebrism, that's usually associated with, it's very Caravaggio-esque.